that Scarpino was just making excuses as to why he couldn't get certain work done.
We're live.
You know, he just kept talking about money, really. You know, and
like the OJs.
I believe we're live, guys.
Diversity training and things like that.
I
And
don't
he's
see
only
anything
held
yet.
3 in the entire time that he's been in office.
I don't see anything yet.
Hold on. We're going on there now. Hold on.
Well, Yonkers Tribune already wrote that she took the debate.
She did take it. She did. I watched the whole thing.
Okay.
You live now.
Oh yeah, just said it. All right.
I'm just gonna wait till a few people come in here. Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. Welcome. Thank you for joining, Damon, Mayo, Kenneth. I appreciate you all, and we're having this discussion on the war on police brutality and the uptick that we're having in our communities and what's going on right now with the killings of George Floyd, the killings of Breonna Taylor, the killings of Aubrey. It's insane. First and foremost, what I want to say is thank you as Black men in your profession that is not only masters at your craft, but you're thriving. And you are a representation of strong Black men in our community. And I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you. But would everyone like to introduce themselves? You want to start, Damon?
Hold on one second. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Damon K. Jones. I am the New York representative of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. I have been in law enforcement for the last 30 years. I'm also the publisher of Black Westchester magazine.
Hello and welcome. And Mayo?
Good morning, Mayo Bartlett. I'm an attorney in White Plains, New York. I serve people throughout New York State and Connecticut in state and federal courts. I am a former prosecutor with the Westchester County DA's office. I ran the bias crime unit there. I am a former chair of the Human Rights Commission for Westchester Criminal Defense, Civil Rights, and Personal Injury Attorney.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Kenneth? We know you.
Good morning, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. I always say hero to some, troublemaker to others. Depends on what side of the fence you're standing on.
So much.
I am a program supervisor with the Urban League of Westchester. I oversee a job readiness training program. I am also one of the co-founders of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform and co-founder of the Westchester Black Political Conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenneth. Thank you so much for coming. So I wanted to open up the floor to talk about each of your perspectives on what's going on right now in the cases of George Floyd in particular. And what is your opinion on what's happening right now with police brutality? Damon, maybe you want to start.
We've been here before.
Mm.
This situation is not new. Black people being killed by police is not new. Police crimes against Black people is not new. The police department was created on oppression of Black people. We know that. So when we see Black men being killed by law enforcement and we see no change, sooner or later, we're going to have to change how we address the situation. I am not a fan of protest profiteers who want to protest but really have no agenda to change it. I am not a fan of those who don't want to look deeper in what we need to do in the Black community to change it. We have always said the Black community is the only Black community that doesn't dictate how their police, how their community is policed. So we have to begin to start looking at laws, policy, and legislation.
Sure.
If we're not looking at that, if we're not talking about that, if the goal of what's going on down there, right, if the end goal is not changing laws, policy, and legislation, then we're wasting our time. And 2 months from now, another Black man is going to be killed, or woman's going to be killed, and we're going to march, and the protest profiteers are going to come out, right? And we're going to set some more fires like we did in Watts. We're going to set fires in our own communities. We're not going to go in the white man's community. We're going to burn down our grocery stores, and we're going to burn down everything, huh?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And we're going to have nothing.
Right. Right.
And we're going to still not have no change in the institution of policing in our community. So,
Mayo, I'd like to ask you, how do you think we can start to attack it from the institution perspective? How can we change what's happening from the institution?
Well, people have to understand, number one, they don't have a right to employment as police officers. The other thing that I think that Minnesota is showing is that the only reason we have government or police at all is because the people consent to have government and police. If the people don't consent to do so, there are not enough government and police resources to actually police or to govern any institution, any municipality. So most people have trust in their municipality or in their police department. And when they lose that trust, you see it play out politically in terms of recalls of governors and mayors, people being voted out of office on national level. And the problem here is that with police, for the most part, they can engage in misconduct. And throughout many criminal trials all around the country, you will hear about the prior bad acts of the person that was arrested. You'll hear about everything he or she did, but you'll never hear about what the police officer did. And quite often, if you were to have put those two things on a scale, the police officer may well have engaged in much worse conduct than the person who's charged. So you might be charged with possessing a counterfeit $20 bill, and you'll find out that the officer who makes the arrest, even if he does so or she does so without brutality, has their own conviction for theft and has their own conviction for assaults, sometimes even homicides, and the jury will never know that. They'll never know that they were disciplined departmentally for lying. And these are the people that we're entrusting to ensure our well-being and our safety. So one of the things we have to do is we have to remove some of these institutional protections from police in terms of their ability to withhold that information, to keep their internal affairs records sealed from the public. That should be readily available and easily accessible without you having to go into the police headquarters. It ought to be online and everybody ought to know it. And that should be subject to cross-examination. And someone who engages in misconduct should be terminated. If you're a social worker and you engage in, and you get a criminal conviction, you're up for relicensing. If you're a nurse, if you're a lawyer, if you're an electrician or a plumber, you have to be relicensed in order to continue to work. And normally that comes up in the criminal justice background, and you'll be told you can't work. So you have nurses who were told that they lost their job because of a DWI conviction. It has nothing to do with them practicing as a nurse, but yet police are shielded from that. Police generally are told that you don't have to give a statement after you kill someone, where almost every other municipal employee is told that, yeah, you're right, you don't have to give a statement. You still have your constitutional rights. However, if you don't give a statement, you lose your job.
Right. Right.
The other thing is we have to start looking at incarcerating them with heavy penalties. And we have hate crime legislation, which enhances penalties for crimes that are motivated in whole or in part based upon someone's perceived race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and more, national origin, other things. There ought to be an enhanced penalty for police brutality, because these people are people we characterize as heroes all the time. However, they are the ones we entrust to uphold the law. So if the people who are entrusted to uphold the law are actually the criminals, then there has to be a greater consequence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kenneth, I know that you've experienced this on a personal level with the killing of your father, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. And in your perspective, how do you think that these officers should be charged when it comes to this case in specific with George Floyd?
Well, one of the things that I've talked about, and Damon and Mayo and I have talked about this at length, is the fact that we see a lot of times that we respond off of emotion rather than logic when we're dealing with situations like this. And I always say that these government agencies are reading from the same playbook. We're developing a playbook, they read from the same playbook on how to handle situations like this. So when we yell out, these officers should be charged with murder,
Right.
it's the wrong thing to say out loud publicly.
Right.
You know, we have to understand that they're putting a narrative out there, and the media is taking that narrative and spreading it out there. So we have to understand whatever we say, they're going to record it, they're going to play it. So we're constantly yelling, oh, these officers should be charged with murder. We have to be more specific about what murder charge we're talking about. Because I always say that, how do you prove that an officer woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to kill me a person today, I'm going to kill me a black person today? How do you prove that?
Right.
You know, and I had a conversation with someone about that, and they said, but you see it on the video. I said, but you can't prove the intent.
Right.
I said, you can't prove it. I said, but was his behavior reckless? I said, yeah. Did he have a total lack of regard for his life? Yes. Was he following policy? Clearly not. I said, so we have to look at charges that he can put inside there, where you can hit him with a manslaughter charge or a negligent homicide charge, and then Mayo enlightened me even more. And he was saying, when you're presenting this to the grand jury, you throw all of it on the table.
Right.
Exactly.
And you make them consider every charge, from murder all the way down. Not just look at a second-degree murder charge, because you're not going to get that.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Maybe, Damon, maybe we'd like to,
you know,
oh, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, to Ken's point, the other thing is we have to really start to push for laws that make the grand jury public. There's absolutely no reason for a grand jury to be private. Justice is not private. Trials are not private. Matter of fact, these cases are covered in the news extensively from beginning to end. And normally, if we get arrested, there's no long wait to make sure it's airtight. They arrest you right off the bat based on somebody. For instance, the man in Central Park could have easily been arrested, could have easily been killed, just based on that woman making the determination that she knows she's a white woman and she can call the police and they'll do what she wants her to do. And they're going to lock her up, as she said to him, because I'm going to say I'm being attacked by a black man. Well, now, more often than not, he would have been charged because she said that. And that would have been it. He would have got charged. If he had the money to post bail, he posts bail. If he can hire a lawyer, he hires a lawyer. And then he sits and waits for justice through this pandemic. It'd be 2 years before he even finishes his case. So we have to get the grand jury process open. Then, to Ken's point, we can see what the district attorney's office provided, what the prosecutor provided to the grand jury to consider, and how it was provided, hopefully.
Sure. So Damon, why do you think that they were fired and not charged?
Well, I mean, the police department did its job. They reviewed the tape, right? They reviewed whatever reports. They addressed their legal counsel,
right?
And they fired him for they killed the man. They violated policies, procedures, and training. I don't think any law enforcement department trains their officer to put a knee in the back of someone's neck while they're cuffed. Once you have cuffs on a suspect,
there's no threat.
There's the threat is over, right? Once the cuffs are on, all right. Once you put the cuffs on, even in jail, we could struggle and fight, but once those cuffs goes on, everybody draws back because he is not a threat. He is not a threat, a real threat anymore.
Right.
So to use that type of physical force, while that person was in cuffs, must have been, and I'm saying it should have been, and because he got fired, it was a violation of policy, procedure, and training. So, I mean, I think they acted very swiftly, and the mayor and the chief
that was my next question. Yeah,
should be commended that within 24 hours, they fired all officers because of the fact that the other ones that were standing there, they should have stopped him from doing what he was doing because they should have knew it was wrong. I had a situation where we had to take down an inmate, and the officer that was assaulted from the inmate was coming to the area, and you could see on his face, because of emotions, he lost it, and he was going to do something to the inmate. And I had to grab the officer and say, no, 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 you're going to lose your job.
Right.
And that's what you do. And when the captain saw that, the captain said, you saved that man his job.
God.
So we have to, even officers around the scene have to have a responsibility, right? To see when another officer is crossing the line or caught up in his emotions, because we are human beings at the end of the day.
Sure.
And be able to stop it.
Right.
So all of them got fired.
Right.
And which they should, and which all of them should have gotten fired. But you know, we have to commend that. But that's the first step. Now that they got fired,
that's a start.
Right? I don't understand
what's next. Why they haven't been charged?
Why is it taking so long for the DA's office? But here's another. But here's another problem. The other problem is our elected officials, Democrats, black elected officials, have failed to pass any type of local, state, or federal police accountability laws. When they violate policy, procedure, and training, it should be a crime. Pantaleo killed the man, still had his job, no charges brought. And the district attorney in Minnesota had the nerve to point a finger at Baltimore, but she tried. But because she failed, because there's no law, there's no state law, there's no criminal law to say when a police officer who's paid by the taxpayer,
right?
Think about this. Everything that they got, their benefits, their training, sometimes their uniform, everything they get is paid by the taxpayer. Absolutely. And when they go out there and they violate the taxpayers by not doing what they're properly trained and violating policies and procedure, it should be a crime.
Sure.
But these politicians are scared. The black ones are always punk out.
Right.
Because we need these type of laws. And if they're not going to pass these laws, the people in these communities need to vote them out and put people in that's going to pass police accountability laws.
Absolutely. Mayo, I wanted to ask you from your perspective, which Damon actually already answered. How do you feel the mayor handled that case in Minnesota?
I can think of many communities in Westchester County and around the country where I would love for that person to be our mayor. Okay. Not only did he show up immediately, it appeared to be heartfelt. There seemed to be empathy. He was not equivocal. He didn't seem to be calculating how it's going to play for him in his next election with the police union. He came out, did the exact right thing. He controlled the things he could control. And we have to understand that also. Unfortunately, we're not taught civics anymore, so we don't even understand structure of government in the United States. But the mayor generally can control what the police chief does, generally appoints the police chief. Sometimes they may not, the police chief or sheriff is elected separately. They generally do not control what the state prosecutor or the DA's office does. So even there, he has called out on and asked for the AG's office to bring charges. this mayor, as far as I can see, has been perfect. He's been even-toned. He hasn't condemned all police. He hasn't condemned everybody in the community that's protesting, but he certainly kept his focus on where it should be, which is how do you have a 9-minute episode where someone's knee is on a man's neck and he kills him. The other thing is, how is this guy with 18 previous complaints on the force in the first place?
Absolutely.
Why are we hiring people who otherwise would be unemployable? He would have a difficult time getting an actual job at Costco if they were to do his background check and reasonably look at him. They might hire him to work on the shelves, but they wouldn't have hired him as security because he's a liability. When you know somebody violates people's civil rights and assaults people and is engaged in misconduct, and you put that person in a position of power, then now you're assuming liability. But I think the mayor has been phenomenal. And if you compare him to mayors all around this country, you know, including mayors that say that they are, you know, progressive, you know, even you look at Mayor de Blasio, okay, in New York City, and after we tried the Mohammed Bar case, went to trial on that case and prevailed, they appealed the case that the jury came back with. So why are you appealing this case if the jury's spoken and you're a progressive mayor? So I think lots of people are great at figuring out how to come into the community, how to go to church and clap their hands and dance and make us feel like, oh, they held the baby. But when you look at what they're really doing, we're really receiving very little, if not anything. Sometimes we get nothing. And when you go also to look at just how we're treated differently in terms of social distancing. Okay, you look at people who were killed over or beaten, humiliated because they were too close to someone. Yet you can look at the Hasidic community where you have maybe 100 people in a school and they're given an opportunity to leave. They're given an opportunity to leave with no one being arrested. So when people say police know one speed, I don't think so. I think that they definitely calculate what they're going to do. They believe they can do whatever they'd like in our community and that there'll be no result. This time they overstepped their bounds. But for all that are now living through their precinct being burned and are now under siege, it's directly as a result of their failure to take control of this person and to allow this man to continue to be a police officer. Because if they hadn't done that, if he had done the same thing as a civilian, none of this would be happening. Presumably he would have been arrested, like in North Carolina, and even then it took much too long, but you wouldn't have had the police precinct being burned down because of actions of a civilian. But when you have a police officer that you're supposed to be able to turn to in your time of need, and you know you can't because you get killed over an alleged $20 bill that might have been counterfeit, that any one of us could have unknowingly, then you have to really stop and look at whether you can actually trust your government.
Right.
Is your government really there for you?
Kenneth, how do you think that with our children seeing what we're experiencing now, our young Black men, how do you think that we can encourage them in a time like this to have even the slightest bit of hope when they feel like they're just hunted for the color of their skin? You know, what they're seeing is crazy right now in this time. How do you think we can actually encourage them? What do you think is the solution for our children who are watching what we're experiencing?
Well, I'll say that I don't believe that there's any real cookie cutter solution to how to go about dealing with this, because each community, each neighborhood is different. Like I got a text from my youngest daughter yesterday, and it surprised me because she has never really talked to me like that, where she said to me, she was like, "Daddy, please be careful out there." She said, "You know, I just want you to be safe." She said, "Especially with everything that's going on, it's very overwhelming." You know, so this is a young lady who is now 18. And I can remember when my father was killed, she was 9. And I remember her asking me, why did they kill my father? I mean, my grandfather. That's what she would say to me. And I didn't have an answer for her. But as far as when we talk about solutions, one of the things that we have to do, and I put a video up about this earlier today, is that we have to begin to police our own neighborhood. We have to, okay? When situations are happening in our neighborhoods, we just don't want the police jumping out, running up to these kids in our neighborhoods and things like that, and just doing whatever they want to do to them.
Right.
There needs to be some type of protocol, a hierarchy in those neighborhoods to say, hey, hold on, what happened? You know, and if it's something that constitutes them having to go in,
Right.
then we'll get them in there, or we'll make sure that they're there. Or if you have to arrest them, then you have to arrest them. But as far as just running up, choking them, beating them in the head, stomping them on the ground and things like that, no, we can't allow that to continue to happen.
Right.
You know, and that's not, like I tell people, that's not condoning violence. That's not saying that. What I'm saying is that I'm constantly talking about how we have to hold law enforcement and our elected officials accountable. But we can't do that if we don't hold ourselves accountable. And part of holding ourselves accountable is taking control of our neighborhoods and talking to these young brothers. That is my problem with a lot of our leadership in our neighborhoods. The community and faith-based leadership. You see these young men standing on the corners doing whatever it is they're doing. You walk across the street. I walk right up to them and I have a conversation with them. And this is what we're supposed to do. When you're talking about teaching the youth or ministering to the youth, or whatever it is you want to give, whatever title you want to give it, this is how you do it. You walk up to them. This is why I can walk up to them, because they'll see me. And whatever they're doing, let's just say they are smoking something.
Sure.
They put it out when they see me come.
Out of respect.
And I tell them, you don't have to do that. And they say, nah, that's all right, Mr. Chamberlain. And I said, my father's Mr. Chamberlain. No, you're Mr. Chamberlain. You know? And so if they can give me that type of respect, they can give everybody else that type of respect. But you can't stand there talking to these youth with your hands crossed like this, thinking that they're going to listen to you. They're not. They're going to wave you off and dismiss you because they're like, you don't care. So the bottom line is, for me, although I said there's no cookie cutter way of dealing with this, if we're talking about our youth, we have to begin to step into our communities and take control of our communities. Remember how when we were younger, if you did something, the neighbor
everybody had a chance to whoop you.
Neighbor got on you about it,
right?
And it took you to your parents, and then your parents got on you about it as well. We have to go back to that. Unfortunately, we dropped that ball. So I mean, that's just my thing. That's my opinion. Somebody else may have another idea. Right. And like I said, there's no cookie cutter here.
I mean, Damon, would you like to speak to that? How, in this current climate and temperature, how can we even encourage our youth to have even hope in law enforcement? I have law enforcement in my family. I've also been on the other side of that. You know, how can we speak to our youth in a way that it would cause them to react out of strategy and not emotion with what's going on? Because they feel it too. They feel it too. They're angry too. What can we say to them?
Well, I think as adults, we have a responsibility to, one, make sure our community is a decent place to live. Let's start there first. And let's stop blaming everything on our youth. You know, the youth are crazy. They don't listen. They don't. No, the youth are very smart, because the youth know if they go into this community,
they can't do that.
Everything is different. The streets are clean. Grown ass men ain't gambling on the corner. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. Right. But when they come back in their community, they see adults throw trash out the window. But that same adult, if they go into the white community, they walk into the trash. Come on, we know we know this is real talk here.
It's real.
So first of all, in order for our youth to have feel like they have hope, we have to make our community a decent place to live first.
Right.
Right? And then
right.
we could control our police department.
Mm.
Then we could control we haven't taken our responsibility yet. It's always easy to pass
point
off
the
your
finger.
responsibility over to the police department, right? The police don't come till after a crime. A Negro had to create the crime.
Right.
Let's
It's
have
true.
real
Let's
talk.
be honest. Yeah.
A Negro had to create the crime. Yeah, I understand all the racism and stuff, but the police is a reactionary institution. They come with a crime when someone calls a crime.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And then if we have our stuff together, you know, Mr. Farrakhan called for the 10,000 feelers. They had the peacekeepers, right? All these things that Black men need to be out in the street taking care of their community, just like the Jewish people do. The police cannot even arrest somebody in the Jewish community until the elder gives them permission.
Wow.
And sometimes they don't even give permission. And guess what the police do? Go about their merry way.
Absolutely.
We have to control our community first. We have to control the economics in our community. We have to control the politics in our community. How do you have a city in America that's 80% Black, but a 90% white police force? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Right. So we're not controlling our community. And once we're able to control our community, then we can control our police force.
Absolutely. Mayo, what are some action items that we can actually do in our communities now and follow through with in order to create change, especially now? I know they say call the DA's office, you know, when these things are happening. What can we do in our community right now? I realize Damon just said, you know, we have to start taking care of our own and policing our own, as Kenneth said as well. But what are some action items that you have?
Well, I think that you got to build coalitions. One of the things that we've done in Westchester, we have the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. It's not perfect, but there have been some significant successes, and one of which is that we have a seat at the table with the county executive in Westchester County. We can meet with him, basically meet with him once a month at least, but if something comes up that requires urgent attention, there's an open dialogue there. We've been able to request that they hire certain people, at least consider certain candidates, and we've been able to get them to talk about certain policy considerations. The other thing, though, is that, look, irrespective of what your community is, because there's dysfunction in throughout the United States. Matter of fact, that's the trend, is dysfunction. I think that we have to also look at how we educate each other, because you can have an A average and be an absolute idiot today and come out and go to Harvard and be still an idiot and get a job and run the country or run a corporation and know nothing. All you did is you got an A in some misinformation, you know, or you purchased your way to it. We have to learn our history. Our history should be curriculum. You should not learn about Tulsa by watching a movie on HBO. You should learn what happened in this country. You should learn about genocide that has been perpetrated in this country. We need to learn the real history of this country, that the Constitution was not meant for us. It wasn't meant for most white people, that it didn't allow the average white person to vote. And that included white men, because you had to own land, and they weren't talking about your little quarter acre or your 10 acres. You had to own basically the town you lived in. And then they thought you were too stupid to be able to have a meaningful vote. So they created the Electoral College, because they didn't think all those rich white men were smart enough to get it right. So we have to understand that. We have to understand that all these people who salute the flag and they pray to a flag, and they think that the Star-Spangled Banner has meaning, but they never read the entire Star-Spangled Banner and don't know that the Star-Spangled Banner celebrated the fact that slaves who wanted to be free wouldn't be, because the British were trying to liberate the slaves and they lost. And the last part of that song, which they never sing, and I invite them to sing it at your World Series. Right. Okay, that you're talking about the bloody footprints of the hireling and slave as they march on to the grave. That's the Star-Spangled Banner. Okay, so I can't imagine any of my Jewish friends singing a song where they talked about bloody footprints marching on to Auschwitz. who would ever sing that. Even if that part of the song was left out, if they knew that was part of the song, it wouldn't be played. Other thing, look, we are, for entertainment purposes, billions and billions of dollars in terms of an industry. And we use derogatory racial terms about ourselves in songs all the time. So if I go to a basketball game in an affluent white town, before the game starts at the high school, they're playing songs where every other word has to be beeped out. If you substituted the N-word out and put in anybody else's racial slur or ethnic slur or LGBT slur, they would shut it down. You would never be heard from again. You would lose your job. Okay, you would be chastised. Even right now in Westchester County, there's an investigation, and there were 2 recent arrests, I think 2 22-year-olds for graffiti on the trail in Bronxville. And one of the things was a swastika, one was Make America Great Again, and the newspaper reporter said the other one was too bad to be printed. Well, the other one was racial slurs against Black people. I don't know why he thought it was too bad for that to be printed, because, see, that might have changed the narrative. The narrative that you got from the article was that it might have been simply anti-Semitic. And now, after reading it in its entirety, it might not be anti-Semitic at all, because it seems to be directed toward Black and brown people. But we don't like to consider Black and brown people the victim.
Right.
So we have to make them do that. We have to make sure that, we go out and stand with people all the time. So when there are anti-Chinese sentiment over COVID-19, we support the Chinese community. Okay, if there's an anti-Semitic incident, we support them. Quiet as not even. Kenneth Chamberlain, myself, and I believe, Damon, you were there. If not, you couldn't be there, but you would have been there. And when they were shooting police in Dallas, who had nothing to do with anything, in connection with another incident in another state, we went and stood with the ministers who didn't stand with us, and we went and stood with the police, the White Plains Police Department, and we stood with them in solidarity. None of those organizations were interested in standing with us,
Exactly.
not one of them.
And that's
so
why
at the
I
end
didn't
of the day,
go.
we even said to them, the only reason we're here is because you're the ones getting shot right now. And if you weren't getting shot right now, we wouldn't even be having this dialogue, because when it's Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., when it's you take your choice, it could be me tomorrow morning for no reason, then it's a shame, we're going to march, we're going to get upset for a little bit, then you're going to forget it even happened and move on to the next one. We can't do that. If we're supporting you, you have to support us. And the same thing in terms of our dollars. We have to become mature enough as a society, as a community. First of all, we have to become a community. We're not right now. Right now, we're a loosely knit group of individuals going everything on our own day by day. But if you become a community again, which we used to have to be for bare survival, then you say, look, you know what? Maybe I'm not spending my money in White Plains based on what happened to Mr. Chamberlain. Maybe I'm not spending my money in Yonkers based upon what the police have been doing. And you know what? Maybe they cut the police force based on that. Maybe they're not able to do some of the things that make it fun to live in White Plains and in Yonkers. Maybe I look at Minnesota and say, hey, you know what? I can still spend my money in Minnesota because I know this was one officer and the 3 other officers who we would deem as heroes, by the way, who are not heroes. And because you put a uniform on does not make you a hero. A hero would have turned around and gone after this officer and arrested him and prevented this death. Those would have been heroes like Serpico, and maybe put themselves in harm's way, understanding their fellow officers were going to come after them. Now, hero does not hide and cower while one of their fellow officers kills somebody for no reason whatsoever. But those are the things we have to start to do. And then maybe you say, hey, I can still support Minnesota because the mayor and the government there, they seem to be doing the right thing. So I'm not going to stop sending my dollars there. But we have to be very thoughtful about how we spend our money and whether we're spending it in the first place. Because you know what? The next pandemic comes around and where'd your money go? It went to the iPhone 12. Did you need it? No.
Right.
Did you need that in the car? No.
Hey,
So,
man, I wanted
those
to
new Jordans, right?
Providing our money to these people.
Right. We're about to wrap up soon, but Kenneth, I wanted to see from your perspective, what do you think some action items we can do to kind of piggyback off of what Mayo was saying?
Well, because Damon and Mayo and I are really a team, what really do I really need to say that he hasn't already said? Okay.
Right.
There's really nothing more that I can really add on to what Mayo said, because
And
I
Damon,
mean,
right.
and Damon, I mean, we talked about everything from us policing our communities to legislation to, you know, taking control of our neighborhoods, you know, to supporting Black businesses, to understanding that it's not just about marching and protesting, that if we're going to march, we need to march into the elected officials' offices and say, this is what you're going to do. You know, I was just having a conversation about the DA's debate last night. And someone said to me, I don't think that if she was in office, if Mimi Roper was in office, that she would have indicted the officers who were involved in the killing of your father. And I said, well, you know, we won't know because she was part of the Department of Justice overseeing Westchester County at that time. But what I told people was I didn't know and didn't meet Mimi in the midst of all of this. I was dealing with David Kennedy. That's who I was dealing with. So I can't say what she would have done differently versus what he did. I know he dragged it out. I said, but I also know that in 2017, we held a dance for justice to raise money for the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. So some of the officers involved in the killing of my father were present at the Dance for Justice, not there to participate, to be involved with community policing, but there to threaten, harass, and intimidate those who were there. I filed the complaint. I thought you could just walk inside the Westchester County District Attorney's office and file a complaint, but you can't. You have to go online, print the complaint, and then fill it out and then mail it in. So I did that, and then I finally got a letter back saying that after investigating my complaint, there wasn't sufficient enough evidence to move forward criminally. So my question was, who did the DA investigate? Who did he question regarding this incident? Because he certainly didn't ask me anything. Did you just simply go by what the police told you, that it was inadvertent? And they always send people to Slater Center when Slater Center has events, which we know is not true, because the week before they had a fight there and not one police officer showed up, and myself and somebody else that works there broke up the fight.
That's crazy.
So my thing is this, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, Scarpino has failed. He has not done anything that he has said he is going to do for this county. So I can't vote for that man, in all honesty. You vote for whoever you want to vote for, but I'm voting for Mimi. It's just that simple, and I'm saying it, and you can vote for whoever you want to vote for. But when we look at situations like this, even the mayor, let's go back to the mayor of Minneapolis. Now, I appreciate his words. Appreciate everything he's saying.
Right.
But, and although I'm like, yes, I'm still saying to myself, those are just words. You know, it's just words right now, okay? Because a politician will tell you whatever you need to hear, you know, at that time. And at the end of the day, he's still a politician. Although he sounds genuine, he's still a politician. So I don't know. And I'm just hoping that whoever the prosecutors are, whoever's looking at this case, that they put everything on the table and that they come back with charges that they know they can actually win, you know, get a conviction on. You know, and I see Damon over there smiling. You know, look, I'm going to say how I feel. I mean, whether you like it or not, you can't say that I didn't tell you what was exactly on my mind. You know, and I'm glad that it didn't take this mayor 6 months to acknowledge the death of this person, of George Floyd, where it took the mayor of the city of White Plains 6 months before he even acknowledged my family And he only did so because we made reference of it at a press conference when the news interviewed me, and I said I have not heard from the mayor. Then he sent something, and he sent an email to my attorney, Mayo Bartlett, with the signatures of everybody on the Common Council and his signature on it, giving his condolences. Now, I'm not saying I would do anything different if I was in the mayor of White Plains. However, if somebody lost a life like that, I would go to that family member. I would go to their home.
Personally.
I would let them know that, you know, I understand that you just lost a loved one. But don't tell me to trust the process when you show me that I can't trust the process because you didn't even acknowledge it. Now, I know I just ran off and went into
No, I mean, it was powerful. I mean, it's true.
I know
It's
that
true.
I just ran off into a whole nother zone. But,
well, we're about to wrap up, and
I just want to let out a secret. I just want to let out a secret for everybody that's watching. Here's a secret. You have to buy your politicians.
You said
I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. Here's the secret. We will end this. We will end police brutality in one term. We have to buy our politicians. I'm going to say,
and we have enough to do it.
Exactly. We have to buy our politicians, because the politicians is the ones who make the laws. Right. The politician, your mayor, you have to buy your mayor. You have to buy your city council. They're the ones who negotiate the contracts with the police. Powerful. To put accountability measures if they violate policy, procedure, and training. Right now, your politicians don't work for you because you haven't bought them. Other people.
On that note,
not one black politician works for black people. Not one. Not one. And if you want to prove me wrong, look at any black politician's donation. Who donated to them? Pookie, Ray Ray, Junebug, Juanita, they're not donating 5,000, 10,000, 1,500. Right? What did Jesus say? The one who pays the piper calls the tune.
Hello.
Well,
any closing remarks, Mayo?
Yeah,
that was powerful.
You know, I mean, you don't have to put it that way necessarily, but in reality, that's what it is. Whether it's not necessarily with money per se, but with the vote, so that they get whatever it is that they're looking for. And some of them are there because they really believe in what they're doing. Others are there because it's a stepping stone for them to achieve more power, to give contracts. Again, if you're the mayor and you decide who gets the towing contract, and you have a friend who has a towing company, who you think's getting that contract? You have a friend who owns a bus company, who's going to be back and forth on the buses. And you decide what programs get cut. And right now, believe me, after this pandemic, there is no money. So watch and see what happens to the communities that don't have a stronger voice. All the programs in those communities are going to be gone. They already started cutting meals and for kids that don't have the means to eat 3 meals a day. And if you drive down the West Side Highway in Manhattan, you come to the park. That's a park / sewage treatment facility. Nobody else has that. You know, I'm sure that Scarsdale loves to have nice parks, but I don't think you're going to put a treatment facility in their community
in the middle of Scarsdale.
Say, here's your park. They know better. So we really have to, in addition to all of those things, think about what it is we're asking for, because you can't sell yourself cheap either. Exactly. Don't say, hey, we want, you know, a field day for the kids. We want a basketball court. No, you got to ask for bigger things. Where's the employment for the people in the community? Okay, what is the education like? Why are there different schools? In today's day and age where kids are at home remotely being educated, why is any kid not being taught by the best teacher involved, period? I mean, as far as there's no reason not to take the very best teacher on earth, and that person should be teaching all the kids. There shouldn't be 3 or 4 different schools of different levels and in the same town, same city. And one school makes the property value twice the value of the one next door because those kids don't go there. You know, so there's so many things we have to think about. And then you got to, I think, and we've all kind of agreed that we got to stop supporting things that don't work for us. If it doesn't work, then what are we supporting it for? I mean,
Right.
don't tell me that North Korea is evil or China's evil. Don't tell me I should be concerned about what's happening in Hong Kong. I haven't seen anybody had a knee put on their neck and choked out for 9 straight minutes in Hong Kong. And when things do happen in Hong Kong, those police are running away because the community came together and said, that's not happening anymore. They're not sitting there watching, taking video, saying, hey, please stop. So, you know, when you look at where the tyranny is, it seems to be pretty clear that it's right here.
Right.
Absolutely. And it sends a clear message. Kenneth, would you like to say anything else in closing?
I don't have nothing else to say.
You said it. Well, I just would like to say, Black man, I love you. Thank all of you for coming on here. I think everything all of you said was so powerful, and a lot of steps and keys that we can take to move forward on our fight for justice and freedom. And we are out of here. I thank you. We're gonna do this again prayerfully. And thank you, AJ. You guys see AJ? I'm out with Black Westchester. My computer was packed up, and AJ was kind enough to allow me to use here in Black Westchester. Shout out to them. They give you the news from a Black point of view. And I just thank you. Thank you all for joining me. And prayerfully, we'll get through this. We will get through this together. All right, guys. Ken, I know you got to run. Mayo, thank you. Damon, love you, brother. I will see you guys later. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. All right. All righty. Right.